Welcome back to the Dr. Cliff Show. In today's episode, we're telling you everything you need to know about Widex hearing aids. Coming up. We're back live for another episode of the Dr. Cliff Show. I'm Dr. Cliff Olson, audiologist and founder of Applied Hearing Solutions in Phoenix, Arizona, and I am once again joined by my co-host.
Hello, everybody. My name is Rachael Cook. I'm also a doctor of audiology at Applied Hearing Solutions. Thank you so much for joining us today. We have a jam-packed episode full of all things Widex. So we'll be starting out with some of the history of the company. We'll be reviewing all of the hearing aid styles that they have available, a ton of different features that Widex has available as well, and including a lot of information about their connectivity and their compatible accessories today.
Yeah, and you guys can ask your questions. We don't have Kelsey here today helping us out with Q&A, so please be patient with us. But Dr. Cook will be trying to go through some of those questions and maybe answer them for you. We may be having some internet issues again today. I apologize for that. If we are going to have this episode republished for you within the next day or so, right, with custom closed captions on them. Make sure that you're hitting that like and subscribe button for us and with notifications turned on so you do get notified every single time that we go live with this show that we have every Wednesdays at 4 p.m. Arizona time. And I do realize that I guess the time change happened this last week, so that's a little bit different. You're probably watching this on a different time zone than us, at least most of you are. But we also have some other big news that happened this last week. You got married.
I got married, so I was out of not in the office last week, and that's why Kelsey jumped on in.
I guess that's understandably so. You had to get ready for all of that.
Yeah,
and it did happen, even though there's a little bit of rain that happened on the day.
A lot of bit of rain, holy moly. But we made it through, and everything went perfectly. And we'll probably do a honeymoon in the fall or something like that.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Sounds good. We got to get you working through the summer because everybody needs to treat their hearing loss right now.
This is true. This is true. Well, first thing, before we get into all the fun of Widex, we need to jump in real quick to our first sponsor segment, which is Eosera. Now, we were just talking right before the show started about how terrible of ear infections we used to get as kids. And we both said we would do anything to make them stop because they are just so painful. Now, Eosera has an entire comprehensive lineup of ear care products, but one of the products that they do have is something called Ear Pain MD. And this is going to be for outer ear pain, and this is also going to be for fast and temporary relief of outer ear pain. So this is something that you can kind of use in the interim if you've got a doctor's appointment the next day, but you can't get in until the next day and you need something to just kind of take the edge off of that pain. This can definitely help with that. The mixture within this Ear Pain MD does actually have 4% lidocaine within it, and that's actually as high as you can go, the maximum dosage of lidocaine that you can have in an over-the-counter product. So definitely goes in there and kind of, numbs things up a little bit to try and help bring down some of that pain. Another off-label use we were thinking of earlier today is if you have newer hearing aids to you and the dome is the correct fit and the correct size, but you're just kind of getting used to having something in your ears, Ear Pain MD could go and kind of numb things up just a little bit temporarily just to get you through that transition period. So, as I said earlier, they have an entire comprehensive lineup of ear care products from ear wax to ear itch, ear pain, all over the board. Check out all of their products at eosera.com. You can also find them at most national retailers like CVS, Walgreens, Walmart, and more. So thank you, Eosera.
Terrific. Okay, so let's jump into the history of Widex. Now, this was actually founded by two individuals, one of them being Christian Topholm and the other one being Eric Westerman in 1949. That was a good year because that was the year my father was born. I know he'll love me saying that here on the show. Maybe I gave away his age. Maybe he doesn't want me to say that. But they both worked for Oticon. So Topholm was a factory manager. Westerman was an export manager. They both mutually resigned in 1955, though. And in 1956, this is where their first pocket model, and you tried to find the image of this particular pocket model hearing aid, and you had no luck.
Can't find it. But we've seen other pocket models throughout the different episodes as well, so we can probably assume that it's some small cigarette carton sized or small purse or clutch sized body aid that was worn probably on your belt or in a purse type of a setup with a cord that came up and something went
What
in
I
your
would
ear.
say is this: if anyone from Widex is watching
Yeah.
this show right now, if you have like pictures of this at your headquarters, which is gorgeous, by the way, we'll show you a picture
Yes.
of that. Please send us an email with that image. We'd like to share it on social media so people can see really how far technology has come since 1956. But in 2018, there was a merger between Savantos and Widex, which actually created WS Audiology. Now, this company is headquartered globally in Denmark, and here's the graphic that we have of Denmark, of their headquarters rather in Denmark. And so this is what were you saying? The only carbon neutral facility in the hearing care industry?
Yes, it is the only carbon neutral hearing aid headquarters, and it's so cool. You can see the windmill in that picture that generates a lot of the electricity for that site. They also use a bunch of water underneath that building to help cool and heat and retain cool air and warmer air. The whole thing is just so cool, and definitely Denmark is always kind of on the cutting edge of the more carbon neutral business practices and things like that, so it was fitting.
Yeah, very cool. But they also have a U.S. headquarters that's in New York as well. And when we start looking at market share for Widex specifically, we actually have the market share comparison that we've been looking at over the course of the past several weeks as we've been comparing these different manufacturers. And even though we know that Siemens and Widex have kind of like joined forces, that would make them about 15% of market share with WS Audiology. If you separate out Widex, you can see Widex is really the smallest manufacturer on this list at 3% of the total global market share. Now, like I said, they are a combination with WS Audiology, and we have an industry map that we can put up on the screen here for you guys. Now, you've actually seen this one before when we were talking about Signia. That's because, WS Audiology technically owns all of these brands after Savantos and Widex kind of merged and joined forces. So you can see all the different hearing aid brands that are in their product lineup. You can see their different retail locations that are on there, and some of the other things that this particular company owns, like Shoebox, which is audiometry. This company is actually based up in Canada, but where they have different hearing test equipment that they can do. And Shoebox was actually heavily used during the time of COVID, where people were doing remote hearing tests.
Sure. Absolutely. Now, Widex as a company has a couple of firsts for the industry. And the first one I wanted to talk about was the first digital in-the-ear device, which was the Widex Senso. Now, they had a BTE version or behind-the-ear version of this device, but then this was the first digital in-the-ear device, and we have a graphic for that as well. I thought that this was funny. They put that this came out in 1995, and of all the things that probably happened in 1995, they found the most important to compare it with to be the introduction of the mouse scroll wheel.
Yeah, I'm telling you what, though, I still use that scroll wheel today.
Me too.
I can't guarantee this, but I'm pretty sure that no one's using the Widex Senso still today. But I can't guarantee that. And here's another plea to Widex. I just bought an Oticon DigiFocus hearing aid, and I know that Oticon and Widex, they were like really scrambling to get the first all-digital hearing aid out to market. Widex did beat Oticon with that just slightly, but I've been able to procure a Oticon DigiFocus hearing aid, so their first all digital hearing aid. If someone from Widex happens to have a Widex Senso laying around anywhere, please send it to me. I will make sure that thing gets its proper, its due attention, so to speak, on social media.
We're gonna have to start an archive, like a library archive in the lobby or something, and just have like all of these hearing aids and just walk people through the whole history of hearing aids overall, because we got a lot of stuff at the office.
The thing that I find interesting is that I think people really need to understand, people meaning everyone watching the show right now, I think you need to understand really where things start, and everything has to start somewhere, and it needs to progress to a certain point. And really the Widex Senso and the Oticon DigiFocus, they like really started this whole conversion to 100% digital revolution, which is why hearing aids can do what they do now. And some of the features we're going to be talking about with Widex, how those hearing aids can do what they do now, but they had to start somewhere.
Sure, absolutely. Now, in 2008, they also had the Passion device, and this became the smallest receiver and canal device available. Has a 21 millimeter diameter, and it took a size 10 battery. These things are super tiny, and we'll be talking more about this device here coming up, because they still have this little micro receiver and canal device available. and that's it's so tiny in person.
Yeah,
it's so small.
And the Widex Passion is great. Passion also sometimes leads to babies. So we have the Widex Baby 440 that was released in 2010. No, that was not planned or scripted. I couldn't help myself. I could not help myself. And so this is actually a receiver and canal hearing aid for a baby. Now, this does not exist anymore. And we have another graphic of this because it's like, it looks like that would be very difficult to fit inside of a baby's ear.
Well, I think it's kind of a no-no, at least now in pediatric audiology. You don't really fit kids with receiver and canal devices. And there's a lot of reasons for that, mostly because of the fact that their ear canal sizes are changing shape so often that you really should be having a custom ear mold with that. But it had just a receiver that sat outside of the ear canal because it was too big to fit inside of a baby's ear canal, and then just different dome tips that went on the end of it. They're not producing it anymore, obviously.
I mean, it's probably a crash and burn. But again, I appreciate the level of ingenuity to try to make this a thing, because that could have very easily been a successful thing.
Yep.
And we would just be like, oh, that's just how you treat a baby with hearing aids, with a receiver and canal hearing aid, right?
Sure.
Unfortunately, it didn't work, and here we are now still using silicone impressions and things like that for babies to get them fit with BTE, behind the ear hearing aids. Now, Widex does have a full lineup of their devices, and we can put them up on the screen right now. So this is the Widex Moment Shear, to be more specific, and you can see that they have a full range of receiver and canal, rechargeable, disposable battery, BTE devices, and in-the-ear devices as well. Now, if we focus on the receiver and canal lineup, the Widex Moment Shear RIC R, this particular hearing aid gives you 29 hours of battery life. It uses a lithium-ion battery. And this hearing aid is actually really small for a rechargeable hearing aid when you look at it.
Yeah. We have a graphic of just that receiver and canal rechargeable style right there. Super sleek, super slim device, very small, and a wide range of coupling options as far as domes go for that as well. But my favorite part is probably the amount of color options that the Shear has, because as we know, in the hearing aid industry, a lot of times they go for hair colors or even skin colors. So we see a lot of beige, a lot of silver, a lot of gold, a lot of brown. But Widex really shakes it up. You can see on that far right-hand side, we have options for red, options for blue, options for pink, options for teal. So I do appreciate that, because it's not often that I have a patient that wants to get into a color, but when they do, I get excited. So.
Yeah, and the RIC R, in all of those colors, I think it's fancy. If someone wants a color, that's great, they can get it. And that hearing aid is also very small, too, though. But if you want an even smaller hearing aid, you can go with the Moment RIC 10, which is their disposable battery version of this hearing aid. Yep. This is going to be probably the smallest hearing aid you're going to find, receiver and canal, literally out of the entire market right now, because everyone has pretty much done away with their size 10 batteries.
Yeah. I was wondering if the ReSound Mini Re would even come close in size to that.
Yeah, no, it's still bigger than this one.
Yeah, understandable. Definitely super, super, super small. Every time I see them in person, I'm like, oh, so tiny. But all of their devices do come in 4 different technology levels as well. We've talked about this with other companies, and you really need to know which technology level you're getting into, because in some companies, the larger the number, the higher the technology level. And in other companies, it's actually the lower the number, the higher the technology level. So for Widex specifically, their most premium technology line is going to be the 440s. Then it goes down to the 330s, the 220s, and finally the 110s. So they have 4 technology levels.
Yeah, and it's important to understand that each time you go down in technology level, it takes features and customizations away from the person who's programming those devices for you. Now, it does not guarantee that you'll drop performance when you go down in a technology level. It just means that you're potentially leaving benefit on the table. So I tend to recommend to people you go with the highest level of technology you can reasonably afford. If you can't afford it, you drop down to the level you can afford, and then it's the job of your hearing care professional to optimize the performance of those particular hearing aids. Now, the charger, let's talk about the charger, because I want to go on a little bit of a rant here. I don't understand their chargers. We have images of their chargers. They're not really travel chargers, but they're not really good desk chargers. They fall over very easily. They have to be plugged in. They have this weird lid thing to protect the openings of where the hearing aids would go, but you're not really going to do that when you take them out if you're just wearing them at home. And I don't know. It just makes no sense to me their chargers really drive me nuts. Now, they do use inductive charging, which is a good thing because there's no battery contacts and there's nothing to essentially build up debris or anything like that to prevent the charging. But I just really feel like they should have done something different where maybe it has a lid to close if you're going to take these and travel with them, or have an internal power pack so you can charge devices on the go, or make them more substantial to where they don't fall over when they're on your desktop. So that's rant number one.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say, is that it could widen up the base a little bit so it's just not as top heavy or easy to fall over.
Yeah, exactly. And then I also want to talk about the cross. So when I was going through my graduate program, I fit more Widex crosses than any other brand combined when it came to treating single-sided deafness. And they just really have gotten away from that. You know, you can go back to the Widex Evoke, which was a good hearing aid when it came out, but to go back, 2 technology levels at this point just so you can get cross-transmission, I would just, personally go with a newer tech of a different brand so you can get cross-transmission with the most updated technology that's not from back in like 2019, 2020.
Agreed. Absolutely agreed. There's just too many good cross options on the market right now to be going back several technology generations.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, when I was talking a little bit earlier about it being your hearing care professional's job to optimize the performance of your hearing aids, what I'm talking about there is if your hearing care professional follows best practices. So best practices are the thing that makes the difference between a good hearing care professional and an outstanding, fantastic hearing care professional. And this is exactly why I started the Hearing Up Provider Network. This network of hearing care professionals has been personally vetted by me to be following best practice audiologic care. Now, you can print off the best practice checklist of all the things that your hearing care professional should be doing to optimize the performance of your Widex hearing aids potentially, and you can get them at hearingup.com. So if you are throughout the country, throughout the United States, we're going to be expanding internationally here to Australia, potentially South Africa, and a couple other places. Look in your local area. Go to hearingup.com, see if you can find a local provider so you can guarantee that you get the highest level of hearing care possible.
Most definitely. All right, moving and grooving through these devices, we're going to move on now to the behind-the-ear devices. So Widex doesn't technically have a power BTE, and generally speaking, behind-the-ear devices are able to get more higher powered than receiver and canal devices. It's getting to the point now where really you're kind of able to fit nearly any hearing loss with a receiver and canal device, but they do have a couple of standard behind-the-ear devices, and we have a graphic of these as well. This graphic here specifically is going to be their new Moment behind-the-ear rechargeable BTE hearing aid, and that actually has a 37-hour battery life on it, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah, that's not bad at all.
No.
I imagine that number goes down a little bit when you're doing streaming and stuff like that.
Sure.
That is a really nice thing about these. We'll talk about that later, is that you can do streaming audio. Some people are like, well, then why would you even have a BTE option? Well, individuals who have a lot of draining from their ears, you can't put an electronic component like a receiver and canal device into your ear canal.
Right.
You kill it after a few days, potentially, or a few minutes, potentially. Yeah. So using a behind-the-ear hearing aid with a size 13 tube and custom ear mold to go into your ears can be beneficial.
Definitely.
But if you don't want rechargeable, if you're nervous about the rechargeability side of things, you can still get a BTE hearing aid, a Moment BTE hearing aid that uses a size 13 battery as well. But like you said, there is no power option there, so you might have to go back to the receiver and canal to get a stronger receiver if you have a more substantial hearing loss.
Definitely. Now, if you don't want anything behind your ear at all, Widex also has several custom options as well. So as you can see up here, they actually just updated these to the Moment platform too, which is great. So they've got the CIC Micro on the far left. In the middle, that's their standard CIC, which stands for completely in canal, and their XP, which is on that right-hand side, and that's just likely going to be a higher powered custom device.
So when we look at the colors here, this is kind of funny because I don't know what's going on with their colors. I mean, that's beige at the top.
I know.
We got brown in there, I guess. Dark brown, and then is that black?
There's no black. There's no black. So it goes
looks like a gray.
It goes beige, brown, dark brown, and there's no black at all. And I think that that's really interesting because every other hearing aid manufacturer company, made it a point to put black in the lineup. Number one, because as you've said several times on this show, when you look from the side, the opening of your ear canal is generally, it looks like a black hole. So it helps to kind of blend in that way. But also, if you can see it from the outside, a lot of companies were really trying to go for the more tech look, like earbuds or things that people are wearing in their ears anyway. So to not have a standard black color in this lineup, I think that they kind of missed the mark on that one.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but you know what? If you don't care about that, who cares?
Yeah.
Right? What you should care about is a lot of the other features that these hearing aids are capable of.
Yeah.
So hopefully you had breakfast. Put your learning cap on here because we're going to be talking about a lot of technical stuff.
Sure.
Input dynamic range. So it is a very common thing that when you talk to people in the professional circles that we are in, that when someone's a musician or someone likes listening to like live music, to go with a Widex hearing aid. And one of the big reasons for that is the high input dynamic range. Now we have a graphic for this as well, and we'll let you explain this one.
Okay, so basically when we're talking about input dynamic range, it's talking about how sensitive are these microphones to different levels of sound in terms of volume. And so we're looking at, okay, where does this hearing aid start picking up sound and when does it stop picking up sound, or putting out sound rather? And as you can see on this graph, the lower input limit is at 5 dBSPL, which is nearly imperceptible to anybody.
Anybody but a 16-year-old girl,
yeah,
basically.
Maybe,
right?
yes. And then at the upper limit of that, we've got 113 dBSPL. So they have a 108 decibel input dynamic range, which really means that you're just getting the full spectrum of sound. Things that are really, really soft, all things that are really, really loud. It tries to give the most natural representation for what you would normally be experiencing with quote unquote hearing within, normal limits.
Right. And so when you think about if that upper limit of 113 decibels was, let's say, down at 100 decibels, anytime that any type of music or musical note exceeded or wanted to exceed 100 decibels, it doesn't matter. The hearing aid is only going to bring in up to 100 decibels. So it ends up clipping off the rest of everything else. And we have this saying, garbage in, garbage out. If you have a garbage signal coming into the hearing aid, doesn't matter how much you process it, it's not going to give you a good signal coming out. This is why having a very high input dynamic range is very important for a hearing aid if you want to listen to live music.
Most definitely.
So that's why a lot of hearing care professionals, there are other brands that are out there on the market that are also good for hearing care professionals. There are some manufacturers that are starting to come out with input dynamic ranges that are even bigger than what you get with Widex, but Widex really for a number of years has been really good from a music standpoint.
I completely agree with that. Now, Widex also has a feature called their Sensogram, and to me, it's going to be a little bit controversial of a feature because what the Sensogram is basically something called in situ audiometry, which is basically doing a hearing test in the moment with you wearing your hearing aids and having those tones delivered into your ears. And Widex generally does recommend completing this Sensogram testing and then completing real ear later if that's not an appropriate fitting for the patient. To me, this is not going to be able to take the place of real ear measurement. I think it's a good guide. I think it's a good way to make sure that what you're getting through the devices is matching up with what you got during the hearing testing. I had several times in clinic when we would do a real ear match and maybe the patient wouldn't exactly love the sound. We'd go in and play around with the Sensogram and then they would love the sound. So I definitely think that there's value to the Sensogram, but I don't think that it should be replacing real ear measurement. And unfortunately, I do see those terms thrown around kind of synonymously when they're not the same.
Definitely not the same thing. And that graphic is kind of cool because when you talk, you can actually see on the screen the different frequencies that are hitting. Are they going into the audible range of the individual who has hearing loss? You can see the red, the yellows, the greens, the blues, and all of that. They will fluctuate when someone is talking in the presence of that person who's hooked up to the computer with their hearing aids. So it is kind of cool to see, but you're right, nothing can replace performing real ear measurement. And I would also make the argument that even in the case where you had someone where you programmed to their prescription using real ear measurement, and if they didn't prefer it and you decided, well, let's try Sensogram instead, you should still go into their ear canal after you've done Sensogram and measure it with real ear measurement so you can see like what frequency ranges were you not preferring, and then you have that information for future use as well.
Absolutely. Now let's get into the discussion about machine learning. I know that this gets you jazzed up.
Yeah, so machine learning, this was actually a really, really cool thing that came out with the Widex Evoke hearing aids. So you can basically train your hearing aids to process sound the way that you prefer to hear it.
Yeah.
And machine learning, we're starting to talk about artificial intelligence, machine learning, and all of that. And machine learning is really a subset of artificial intelligence, and it's something, like I said, that you can train. And so the Widex hearing aids, the Widex Moment Shear, the Widex Evoke, they all use this Sound Sense Learn feature inside of their app. And we actually can show you here, like if you want to create a custom program and start to augment the audio for particular scenarios and identify a specific icon so you can save it for later, it will start taking you through different A/B comparisons when you're in a noisy environment or in any kind of environment, really, for you to start adjusting the program settings that your hearing care professional has made for you and start making it essentially sound more the way that you want it to sound. And essentially you're training the hearing aid using this particular feature. So you're going in, you're doing an A/B comparison. Let's say that you are in a noisy restaurant and you're like, you know what, I'm going to open up Sound Sense Learn and I'm going to select either between option A or option B, and they'll be slightly different from each other. And then you bounce back and forth. You say, you know what, B sounds better than A, and it sounds a lot better than A.
Yep.
You'll indicate that. Then it will process, it'll give you another option, another A/B comparison. You go back and forth, and maybe on this one, you're like, you know what, A sounds better, but only a little bit better. And so you'll indicate that. And you end up running this through a number of times, and by the time you're done, you're like, you know what, this is sounding better than what it was the way I was programmed by my hearing care professional. It's basically like having an audiologist in your pocket a little bit.
Yeah, kind of with you. I think that it's nice too that, a lot of times when we talk about programming adjustments through an app, when we talk about having like equalizers on an app, right? A lot of people don't really know what they're looking for out of the sound. They just know that it doesn't sound right. So even to have these other controls, you may be moving a bunch of things around and things still aren't getting better. I like having this A and B comparison because it's very straightforward and it gives you two distinct sound samples and just says, okay, pick which one sounds better. It just takes a lot of that kind of frustration out of, I don't know what change to make it better. I just need it to be better.
Yeah, it's like kind of going to the optometrist and they're saying, hey, what's better, A or B? They don't say what's better, frame 0.5 or frame 1.5. Like I don't even have any context for that. But if they tell me this one or this one, I can be like, well, yeah, this one, but not that much, right?
Sure.
And then they give me another comparison until they land on the prescription, right?
Exactly that.
Now, probably the biggest highlight that came out with the Widex Moment was the idea of this PureSound with zero processing delay. Now, when we say zero delay, that is a trademark name. There is some processing time that it takes for the hearing aid to actually process the sound that's coming in. But they did this to get rid of what we call the comb filter effect. So we have a graphic for the comb filter effect, and I apologize, it's not animated, but you get the idea here. So sound is coming into the ear. Some of the sound naturally comes into the ear canal, and then some sound has to go through the hearing aid to get processed, and then it's combined with the original signal inside of the ear canal. And if this processing delay of the hearing aid is too long, it can actually create some kind of artifact or a comb filter effect inside of the ear canal, which can make sound much less natural. Now, typically speaking, when we're looking at how much would the processing delay have to be, it would have to be pretty substantial for the human brain to identify it. But anecdotally, a lot of people report that this pure sound processing, if you have a hearing loss within the proper range, which we'll show you later, it does sound more natural to a lot of people. Now, we have another graphic here for the pure sound processing speeds. We have a graph that shows this. I think this was very interesting when this came out. So if you look at the Widex Pure Sound at the very bottom of the graph in that light blue color, and then you look along the left-hand side of the graph, you can see 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10 as you go up higher. That is in milliseconds of delay. So along the bottom, you can see that the pure sound is below that 1 millisecond, and they say it's about 0.5 milliseconds across the frequency range of how long it takes for that sound to enter the hearing aid to the time it's processed and back out of the hearing aid. If you go to the traditional or Widex classic processing, it's still faster than some of the other hearing aid manufacturers, but you can tell it's substantially slower than what the PureSound program is. And then you go through manufacturer 3, 2, and 1, and each one of their processing speeds are getting slower and slower.
Yeah, and I've actually tried this out, right? I've set up hearing aids and listened to them without the PureSound on, and then with the PureSound enacted. Dramatic difference, which was cool to see, because a lot of times we hear about these features and there's a lot of marketing around them of why the latest and greatest is the coolest new thing, but to actually put them on and to actually experience it is a completely different thing. And you could tell immediately that there was a huge shift in how things sounded, and I would guess that it's due to that comb filter effect.
The funny thing is that when that first came out, I'm like, yeah, this makes total sense. And I kind of like where they're going with this line of thinking, which is like, let's speed up the processing to prevent this comb filter effect from happening. And that was with the Widex Moment hearing aid. But then when they came out with the Widex Moment Sheer hearing aid, a lot of hearing care professionals are like, what is the difference between these devices? There's not a whole lot different between them. And here's the slippery slope that I think Widex is on, is that once you take it down to where you're doing almost no processing with the hearing aid, or doing some processing but just doing it fast but limiting what you're doing, it's like, where else do you go from there? How do you do less than less? Right, and still create something that's new and innovative, right?
No,
I think that they kind of back themselves into a corner a little bit with the PureSound. I think it makes sense, but I think it's going to make them hard to kind of develop new technology after it, but we'll see.
Yeah, most definitely. I completely agree. Now, another feature that they have is going to be their Zen fractal tones. So I get really excited about talking about this. Oh, we can hear it already. Oh, it's almost like wind chimes,
If this was in my right ear that has tinnitus, it would be even better.
Right?
But I'm hearing it in my left ear.
It's in my right ear with tinnitus, so
there you go.
all
How
is
pleasant
well.
is that?
All is well. The really interesting thing about these fractal tones is that when you have tinnitus, we're trying to kind of keep the ear stimulated and distracted, if you will, by providing an external stimulus rather than giving more attention to the internal stimulus that is being created. And so a lot of times we recommend the use of sound therapy for this. And this is just using background sounds, soothing sounds, interesting sounds to keep the ears stimulated. Now, if you have a hearing loss, your tinnitus, 6 out of 10 individuals that have a hearing loss and also have tinnitus find relief of their tinnitus just from having their hearing loss treated appropriately. But there are 4 out of 10 individuals that need a little bit more than that. And that is kind of where this idea of an ear level sound generator comes into play, which is the idea that we take this hearing aid, we program it as a hearing aid, but we also program in a little extra beyond that. Now, most companies have white noise, pink noise, static noise, ocean noise, rainfall noise, all of these things. But Widex does things very, very differently. They actually use these fractal tones, and the idea behind these is that they never really repeat. And so it's really keeping the ear engaged and stimulated and interested in what's happening because there's no predictability to the patterning of it.
Yeah, it's really clever. I like what they've done with it. Again, they're the only manufacturer that has taken this approach to really treat tinnitus. So it's a really, I think it's nice if you're one of those individuals who you've noticed, even maybe through that sound sample that we played, that you're like, wow, that would be much more pleasant to listen to than a pink noise or a static noise, something like that. You might want to consider it and then just have your hearing care professional program in a program for you to test out, because they have a variety of different ones. They name them like different colors and different
it's
names.
Like aqua, coral, all these different
lavender, so there's a lot of different ones that you might like some of them, you might not like some of them, but you can try all of them out, and you can have some of them be more predominant and played louder. You can have some of them be more just in the background, so you can still hear and communicate with people while it's going, just to keep your tinnitus more at bay.
Definitely. Now, most of the colored options like the aqua and the coral are actually proprietary to hearing aids, so you can't get them in their Widex Zen app, but they have different fractal tones within their app that they layer with things like rain noise and ocean noise. So it's actually very nice. And
and
I used the app for a long time. For
Very
a
cool.
long time I used that through Sound Speaker to help with just getting to sleep, to just kind of lower that tinnitus down on
Well,
the
so,
right side.
Widex is really good from a music standpoint, really good for individuals who have tinnitus, and it's just a great brand of hearing aids if you need prescription devices. But if you need if you have a mild to moderate hearing loss, and you could get away with going with an over-the-counter hearing aid, like the Sontro receiver and canal hearing aid, which is an over-the-counter device from Soundwave Hearing. One thing I really like about Soundwave is that they have a built-in hearing check using their AutoTune smartphone app. By being able to test your hearing aid or your hearing in the app, it allows you to better customize the initial program settings based on your hearing loss. It will also warn you if it detects something like an asymmetry between your two ears, like it did with my hearing loss. It actually gave me a warning, say, hey, did you know you have a difference in both of your ears and your hearing ability? You should probably go and see someone about that. So it actually recommended that I see a hearing care professional due to a possible serious medical condition. And that is a sign of a good over-the-counter hearing aid company if they're going to go the extra mile, not just to sell you a hearing aid, but to make sure that you're taken care of from an audiologic perspective. But that is not all that the app can do. You can also adjust between different programs and volume levels. It has a 3-band equalizer that you can modify and enable noise reduction and feedback cancellation. If you get over-the-counter hearing aids and they do not have an app that allows you to make different customizations and test your hearing inside of the app, you may want to consider the Soundwave Sontro hearing aid instead. You can learn more about the Sontro devices and their AutoTune app at hearsoundwave.com or check them out on my website, hearingup.com.
Great. All right, well, speaking of apps, we're going to jump into their app here in just a second. First, we're going to just talk a little bit about their Bluetooth connectivity. Widex hearing aids are made for iPhone hearing aids, which means that they're going to connect with any iOS devices, such as iPhones and iPads, but they also are able to connect with Android phones following the ASHA streaming protocol, and that was pretty new.
Yeah, it took them a while to get on the ASHA bandwagon, and I'm glad they did, but I mean, honestly, if you're going to be using a made-for-iPhone device like the Widex Moment or Widex Moment Shear, then I really strongly urge you to use an Apple device for that.
I would agree.
Yeah.
I
So
would definitely
now
agree.
we do have some graphics here of the app. So you have some different controls that you can do inside of there. Of course, you can switch between different programs. You can increase, decrease volume. You can activate that Sound Sense Learn feature that I was talking about a little bit earlier. And you can make your own custom programs. And there's a 3-band equalizer that you have inside of there as well.
Most definitely. Now, when it comes to remote programming, we've talked with nearly every single other company at this point about their remote programming options. And unfortunately, at the moment, remote programming of these devices does require the use of something called a remote link, which is a neck loop, and we have a graphic of this as well. It's a body-worn neck loop that does connect your hearing aids up to your phone. So that device is connected to your hearing aids and to your phone to kind of serve as the middleman, if you will. And at that point, your provider is actually able to meet with you through your phone via almost like a FaceTime and make changes to your hearing aid settings through that. But the one question that we had earlier was, okay, is this just on a loan basis, or do you need to buy the remote link? I'm sure if offices have the remote link, then they're happy to loan it out. But the thing with remote care is that a lot of times you're making adjustments on things that are kind of last second, or someone's traveling. Like, it's not something that you are really preparing for in that manner, so needing to have that device is definitely a barrier.
Yeah, there's definitely some negatives. There are a couple of pros to having the neck loop, so you can connect to even their in-the-ear devices, which a lot of manufacturers will not give you the capacity to do, even the really, really small in-the-ear devices for Widex. And it actually allows you to do more adjustments that are not off limits, so to speak, inside of their programming software when you're doing a remote session. I've tested it out. It works. It's a functional thing, but again, you do have to buy that neck loop, and most people are not going to want to buy it, and most clinics are not going to want to loan out the one or two that they have when they have hundreds or thousands of patients who would potentially use a feature like this.
Oh, most definitely. Now, when it comes to accessories, they have quite the lineup, but I'd like to explain why. So let's take a look at this graphic here. This is their entire lineup of accessories. Up at the top, they have the TV Play, and that was one of the newer ones that they added to the lineup. They actually have a newer device that's added to the lineup as well, and we'll talk about that one here in just a second. But the ones that you see on the bottom are mostly for older generation devices, or If you have like an Android that's not compatible with the Moment Shear devices for direct streaming, then you may want to be using one of these devices to serve as a streaming device.
Yeah, I used a ton of those when I was back in grad school with patients. Most of those on the far bottom right-hand side we used a ton of. I really like the look of their TV play. It's kind of interesting. None of this stuff is really to scale on here, just so you know, but really kind of neat looking accessory there.
So let's talk a little bit about this Sound Assist, because I think that this was a really cool addition, and it's kind of mimicking a couple of other devices that we see on the market with Phonak and with Starkey, which we'll talk about next week. But this Sound Assist device it feels like a million things in one. And that's really exciting from a consumer standpoint. This serves as a wearable clip-on partner mic, so just for a remote mic to take your conversational partner's voice and send it straight into your hearing aids. In the picture that you see up on the screen, it's operating as a table microphone, and so it's actually got directional microphones within it to help pick up voices at larger tables or busier group settings. It also has a telecoil mode within it, so it can hook up to any sort of hearing loops that you have access to. If your church has a hearing loop or your college auditorium has a hearing loop, the Widex devices do not have telecoil capability, but this would allow them to link up to that telecoil.
Yeah, and this is relatively to scale here comparatively when you look at the table mic versus the size of the actual hearing aids there. And I really can't stress enough how important it is to use accessories like this if you're struggling in large public venues, if you're struggling in background noise.
Absolutely.
Devices like that can dramatically improve your ability to understand speech in a background noise situation.
Yes. This is becoming one of my sound bites, which is accessories and assistive listening devices are the most cost-efficient way to level up your hearing aid performance.
It's totally true. I mean, when you start looking at the signal-to-noise ratio improvement that you can achieve through an accessory like that for, I don't know, $300 to $400, right?
Yep.
You would have to pay the equivalent of like 10 grand for the newest, latest, and greatest hearing aid to give you something even a percentage of that improvement that you would get with a device like that.
Easily. Now it can also hook up in Bluetooth to anything through that, so it serves kind of like a comm DeX that we would have seen on the previous screen, and it also serves as a remote control. So I feel like there's not really anything that it can't do.
There you go. So if you want to hook up to your desktop or anything like that, you can still do that, which is great. Now we're talking today about Widex's product lineup, but if you missed our first episode in this series a few weeks ago, we talked about ReSound's product lineup, and they have a new platform called Omnia. ReSound's big focus on the ReSound Omnia hearing aids was speech understanding in a background noise situation. In fact, they were able to achieve a 4.5 decibel signal-to-noise ratio improvement, which is massive considering every decibel of improvement you get is roughly equivalent to a 10% improvement in speech understanding. And this is compared to their previous generation technology when using their front-focused feature. One thing that hasn't changed, though, with this new product lineup is the ReSound Smart 3D app, which is still the highest rated app inside of the App Store, which is mind-blowing because there's a bunch of other manufacturers that have been updating their apps over the years and they all have horrible ratings. This is the one app that you're like, wow, they actually have really good ratings, which is really cool. This app allows you to change programs, volume level, activate different accessories, adjust noise reduction and wind noise reduction settings, as well as remote programming sessions with your hearing care professional. They even have a new Check My Fit feature inside of the app, which allows you to ensure that you're wearing your hearing aids correctly. If you're an Apple Watch user, you can even use your watch to adjust the settings of your ReSound Omnia devices. I think that that's the coolest thing in the world. Anytime that I identify a patient who has a Apple Watch and they're using one of these compatible devices, I'm like, you got to start using it this way, and they all love it. So that's terrific. If you want more information, go to resound.com or check out my ReSound Omnia review on YouTube.
Okay, so live streams, unfortunately, have not been up and working for this episode, which means when you're watching this, it's going to be completely recorded. But I did decide to take a look at your Widex Moment video from a couple of years ago, and I found several questions.
Unanswered questions, because I'm an irresponsible YouTuber who doesn't...
You get a lot of comments on there, so I don't think you'd have to have a full another 50 hours a week just to answer all of
We might be able to make that work.
Yeah, right? So I figured that we would just use a couple of questions from this video that are contextual and that maybe other people are wondering about as well. So the first question I thought was a great one. Do you recommend using a more closed fitting, they didn't say dome, but I'm assuming this is what they mean. Do you recommend using a more closed fitting in order to reduce the comb filter effect?
I mean, you technically can do it, but then you introduce other negative effects as well, like more insertion loss and the occlusion effect as well. Those are the two biggies. If you have good low frequency hearing, you do not want to limit sound coming into your ear canal naturally in the low frequencies if you can help it. And that's why you would want to leave your ear canal more open, because the low frequencies enter in naturally. You combine them with the amplified sounds in the high frequencies, and you kind of get the best of both worlds. Like I said, you could do it, but I just don't think that you would end up liking the sound, particularly of your own voice, because when you trap the vibration, the bone conducting vibration of your own voice inside of your ear canals, and that vibrates your eardrum, it's going to totally destroy everything.
Yeah, like you said, sometimes to take advantage of certain features, we have to sacrifice other things, and it's just kind of a delicate balancing act of what's most important to you, and from a sound processing standpoint, what can you adapt to and what can you not adapt to, and so we do that all the time.
And if you have a low frequency hearing loss as well as a mid and high frequency hearing loss, you wouldn't experience the comb filter effect anyway, because you would need to close off your ear canal to amplify all of the different frequencies for you.
Right. Absolutely. Now, this individual said, haven't they updated their rechargeable case to now close?
Oh, no. No. And what year? When was that posted? Can you see?
1 year ago.
1 year ago.
From
and the answer is still
from
freaking
Scuba
no.
Jack.
Scuba Jack.
Yeah.
No, Scuba Jack. They have not closed their charger. I don't understand it.
It does. It has it just is like a little swivel
time
thing.
Out. I get you're trying to defend them, and I appreciate that, and they deserve someone defending them on this show. But I'm sorry, if you have a cat, this is what happens to your hearing aids when you can't close the lid of your charger. All right, animals eat the hearing aids. All right, so put a stinking lid on your charger so the cats and dogs and little kids can't go in there and chew on your stuff.
I do agree with that, most definitely. I see this question that says, musician friends are recommending Widex to me. Widex or Oticon for best sound quality. What do you think?
Yeah, I think since that question was probably posted, or that comment was posted, I think that other manufacturers have come out with higher input dynamic ranges on their devices, which means that more and more manufacturers are realizing, we've got to make sure that we can process music information, because there's a lot of people who enjoy listening to music out there, and we do not want to have every single one of these people go to Widex because they're the best ones at doing that. But we have a bunch of audiophile patients. We fit them in a variety of different brands. If we identify that music is not good, we will switch them to a different brand if necessary. But by and large, I think that this is one thing that other manufacturers are starting to catch up with Widex on, which is the dynamic range.
I do agree. I had one more question on here. I'm going to try and find it. It was on here.
I'm wondering how many questions are actually posted on that video.
Well, there's actually a ton. These usernames are so interesting. This one says, I saw the audiologist last week and they sent me home with Widex Moment demos. The batteries in them are dying so fast. You mentioned streaming in your video, so I guess that's why they're dying so quickly. I tend to watch and listen to a lot of videos on my iPhone when I'm cooking and cleaning. Obviously, the demos are not rechargeable, but I'm worried about investing in the 440s if I'm going to have battery management issues. Tips?
That's kind of interesting. So it sounds like they're using a disposable battery version of the hearing aid, and they're dying. So I'm guessing a size 10 battery with that, or maybe a size 312. I guess it depends on what device they're using. But if they're having issues with them dying so quick, maybe it's relative to previous devices that they've used that use disposable batteries, but they should be getting at least several days worth of battery life. I can't imagine they'd be chewing through a disposable battery, even a size 10, within 1 day.
No, and what's normally interesting is in the office, I might have a report like this, right? And it's something that I'm not generally used to hearing from patients, and when I do a little bit more digging, maybe we determine that they're not opening the battery doors at night.
That's
and so
true.
They're just running and running and running, and then they say, oh, I didn't know I was supposed to be opening the battery doors at night. And so sometimes it's not even necessarily the devices themselves that are eating up the batteries, it's how you're using the devices that's leading to that.
That's very true. And if you go rechargeable, chances are that's not going to be an issue with their Widex Moment Sheer rechargeable device. That one actually has a really good battery life, even if you are streaming. So
agreed.
Awesome. Well, hey, thanks for all the great questions. If you want to, post a question on the video and have me never answer it, apparently, go ahead and go over there to the Widex Moment review video and do that. With that said, that is it for today's show. We really appreciate you joining us here today. As you know, we are here every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Arizona time. So if you missed it today, it's because, well, we had some Wi-Fi issues, but also because you might be in a different time zone than what we're in right now. So if you want to find us, make sure that you go to Facebook Live, YouTube Live, and WTSM TV. And as always, we'll see you next week.